When students ask me which advanced English grammar rules should I use, sometimes I tell them you don't just need the rules, you need to be able to make the right decisions based on your circumstances, such as with the active and passive. You need to make the right choices here. Imagine that you have a person who has done a lot of good work for charity and the king invites them to Buckingham Palace to receive an award. Afterwards, the man might report this: I went to Buckingham Palace, the king gave me a special award. He gave me the award because of my good work for charity. Now here we focus on the person doing the activity, and therefore we use the active voice. I went, the king gave, he gave. So in the first, I went, I did the activity, I went. In the second one, the king gave, the king does the activity. Third, he gave, the king does the activity. And so we use the past simple in each situation in the active form. But let's imagine that we want to change the focus. And now we want to just focus on the person who did the work for charity. What would he say in this case? I went to Buckingham Palace. I was given a special award by the king. I was given the award because of my good work for charity. The first sentence has stayed the same. I went because this person is still doing the activity. But the second and third sentences have changed here. We've used the passive voice because there's a focus on me, the person doing the work for charity, and talking about when he received something. So we keep this person at the beginning of the sentence, I, but because he's no longer doing the activity, instead he's receiving the activity, we use the passive voice instead, and that changes the grammar. Now, what if we want to focus on the king in the sentence? The king gave me a special award. He gave me the award because of my good work for charity. So now the king goes to the beginning of the sentence to focus on him. And because he does the activities, we use the active voice, the past simple in both cases. So the grammar we used here depended upon the choice that the person made when speaking. Did he choose to focus on whoever is doing the activity? Or did he focus on himself? And that made the switch between the active and the passive. We also have to make choices when choosing between using a single one-word verb and a phrasal verb. Let's imagine this man goes home. He wants a quiet evening so that he can do some work. But the neighbours are making lots of noise. So the man goes and speaks to the neighbours. I'm trying to get on with my work. Get on with is a phrasal verb, a 3-word verb. And he uses this when he's speaking to his neighbours. But what if he decided to do things a little bit more seriously and write them a letter? Instead, he may have written this: Dear Madam, I would be grateful if you allowed me to continue my work. Here we have changed the phrasal verb, get on with, to a single verb, continue. Why the difference? It's because when we want to be more formal, more professional, more businesslike, more serious, more official, we generally use single word verbs, such as continue. But if we're being more informal, for example, conversation, or we're communicating with people we already know, we're more likely to use a phrasal verb, such as get on with. So this situation here will affect your choice of the words you use. Do you use a single word to make it sound more professional or more serious, or a phrasal verb to be more communicative in everyday conversation? We also need to make decisions when we are reporting other people's speech. Let's imagine you read a newspaper, let's call it the Daily News, And it says something about wages in society, in your country. Perhaps this trend is happening that you can see here. So if you had to report what was said in the newspaper, how would you do it? Well, you could say this: economists believe that wages are increasing. Here we're using the present simple. But someone else might choose to report it this way: economists believed that wages were increasing. So why the difference between the present simple and the past simple when reporting what we read in the newspaper? Well, it can be for these reasons. To use the present tense, that means that the beliefs that you think are still the same. Let's look at the first example again. Economists believe that wages are increasing. If I say believe, I mean that the economists still think this is true. Perhaps the newspaper is reporting what economists said 1 year ago. But in your opinion, the beliefs then that wages are increasing are still the same now. The economists are saying something that they believe is true over a longer period of time. They were true yesterday, a month ago, a year ago, and they're still true now. But if I use believed, I'm communicating something else. Here I'm using the past tense, and this is for beliefs that you think are no longer true. So maybe you read in the paper that last year economists believed that wages were increasing. What this meant was that was a belief which was true at the time. Wages were increasing last year. But now it's not the same. Now perhaps wages are not increasing anymore. So by using the past tense, I am showing that this belief belongs completely to the past and does not belong to now. And you could use this with other verbs. It's not just with believe. Whenever you use the past tense when you're reporting, when it's to do with opinions or thoughts, beliefs, attitudes, things like that, not factual events, then by using the past tense, you are telling your listener, this was the thought or opinion or belief or attitude that existed in the past, and I'm not connecting it to now. If I use the present tense, then I'm saying that these thoughts, attitudes, opinions, they all continue to now. They were true in the past and they're still true now. What about when using conditionals? Imagine that someone is told to run for a train for this reason: if you go quickly, you'll catch the train. This is what we are taught in our grammar books. First conditional: use an if clause followed by a will clause for the consequence. If something is true, then this consequence happens, and we use will to indicate that the consequence in the present or the future will be this way. If you go quickly, you will catch the train. And that's what we're taught. But conditionals can be more complex. You have more choices than just to use will. You could also say this: if you go quickly, you could catch the train. No will at all here. Because the truth is that you can use any modal verb in a conditional as long as it's in the right context. And sometimes will is not the right context, because if we use will, it means that there is a consequence which is certain. It's definitely going to happen. If I use will, then if you go quickly, you definitely catch the train. That's when I use will. But if I'm not certain that the consequence is going to happen, then I could use could, may, or might for a possible consequence. If you go quickly, you could catch the train, which means it's a possibility to catch the train, but I'm not certain. And you could use other modal verbs instead of will too. If you used should, it means what ought to be the consequence. If you go quickly, you should catch the train, which really means if you go quickly, I think you will catch the train. That's what the consequence should be. but I'm not certain. I'm just saying what should or ought to happen. So when you are making the first conditional in English and other conditionals, you have choices to make. Are you showing certainty in the consequence, or is there not certainty in the consequence? And that will affect your choice. And likewise when using the present perfect, simple or continuous. Grammar books often say that these are interchangeable, but in reality, it's to do with choices. What do you want to communicate to your listener? Sometimes there's a situation where the present perfect simple or the present perfect continuous would both be grammatically acceptable, such as here. Here is a lady singing. How can we describe this with the present perfect? Maybe this is something that happened recently up to now. You could say, she has been singing a song. But then afterwards, after she's finished, the audience claps her performance. How would we describe this? Well, she has sung a song, and now the audience are clapping. So why the difference here? Why not she has been singing a song for both, or she has sung a song for both? Because grammatically, you could use either. Well, it's to do with this. We use the present perfect simple when we focus on the completion of the activity. When the audience are clapping, the singing is finished. But it's still something that happened in the past with a connection to now. So to indicate that we're using the present perfect for something that happened from the past up to now or recently, yes, we use the present perfect for that, but we use the simple to emphasize the fact it's now completed. And we use the continuous form when we want to focus on the activity itself. So while she is singing, we say she has been singing a song to focus on the fact that this singing started in the past and has carried on up until now. And here you'd have another choice. Could you use the present continuous? Well, if I use the present continuous, then that would be focusing on the activity happening now. If I use the present perfect continuous, I'm focusing on an activity that happened in the past up until now. Maybe you could say, she has been singing even when the singing is finished. But by saying she has been singing a song, I'm focusing on the fact that there was an activity of singing, not the fact that it is completed. So these are important decisions that you need to make when you are choosing the rules that you speak or write with English grammar. And to learn so much more about English grammar, try my Perfect English Grammar course, which has over 40 hours of video teaching from me and opportunities to practice your speaking with most major English grammatical rules and areas. There's a link in the description below me if you'd like to learn more.